dawn of time. That's something that we've become known for emphasizing. So that's going to be a great book and a very original book as well. And so we need money for that. And we're not asking for very much for the first 6 months. We're asking for 5K. And we've got some great rewards up there as well. And let's just fire up some of the rewards. And I'm just going to go live with the crowdfunder right now. Well, let's, I clicked the button and I'm not, yeah, I got to click that button. Congratulations, your project is now live at 7:29, and that will last until the 7th of January. So those sort of things that you've seen there, we've got that they're all rewards. You don't need to have a reward. You don't need to claim a reward. You can just fire in a figure of whatever you want. But if you'd like to send in 15 quid, for example, and get a little badge at the same time, then go to crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2026. And it's all there for you. Now, folks, it's my pleasure to welcome friend of the show. And that's the crowdfunder graphic up there now as well. That's the QR code. You can click on that and get taken to the crowdfunder also. My pleasure to welcome friend of the show, Ash. Now, folks on TikTok, we're going to have to say goodbye to you because you won't be able to see this. But we'll see you next week on TikTok. Folks, please say hello to Ash. Hi there, Ash.
I'll see you well.
Pretty well, absolutely. We've got this thing going on now where we can share each other's broadcast. So, folks, what that means is that Ash or whoever, if they have a dedicated following, they can press the button, and this streams not only to the AFFG YouTube page, but also streams to Ash's YouTube page. And we'll just put up Ash's address there. It's youtube.com/@Preston Journalist. There we go. youtube.com/@Preston Journalist. So welcome to anybody who's a friend with Ash. If anybody's a friend of yours, Ash, they are a friend of ours. Let's just keep that up there. Good. So what's on your mind tonight, Ash? I noticed that you just released a video about the Chagos Islands. Now, that's been kind of on and off the news for at least an hour, at least a year, if not a minute. So what's the latest now?
So as we know, Labour signed over the Chagos Islands, the worst deal probably in history, which is why it's called the surrender deal. They told us we're going to cost less than the cost of a new aircraft carrier, a couple of billion quid, they said. To Reform's credit, they said it was going to be more like 40 billion quid it was going to cost us. Turns out the figure is something in between. It's around 34, 35 billion pounds-ish. It's going to cost us to sign over our own overseas territories. The Chagosian people didn't get a single word in. They weren't allowed to make No, that's not true. They did make representations to ministers and to Parliament, but obviously it just fell on deaf ears completely. Labour didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to know. And they were so keen for some reason to hand over not just our territory. It is our territory, but also it's jointly leased with the Americans. So the Americans have an air base on there. They have troops stationed there as well. And it's an important bridge in the Pacific. It's a very important base. Mauritius being so close with China should be a problem for anybody with a brain cell in their heads. But apparently for Starmer, that's absolutely fine. So that now Mauritius being basically in the pockets of China, will have control over the Chagos Islands. But the UN, the Human Rights Council, whatever they call it, have said this is completely against the human rights of the Chagosian people, because they should have had a say, some self-determination, a phrase you've heard a lot in Scotland, of course. Self-determination, whether they stay under British rule and keep King Charles as the monarch, etc., or they go and live under the Mauritians, who have never in their history, by the way, owned the Chagos Islands, not once. And I think it's 1,500 miles away or something like that. They're absolutely nowhere near it either. So now the UN want to put a stop to this. Trump has played ball with Starmer for some reason for a time on this, but I think Trump's also going to try and put a stop to this deal, because it's terrible for the American military as well. They need that base. It's, like I said, a holding station, if you will, if something was to break out. And what's even worse about this deal, Alistair, is unbelievable. If we wanted to, let's say war did break out or something was going to happen in that region, we have to notify the Mauritians before we launch any military action whatsoever. Whether that's Navy, Air Force, or Army. Absolutely incredible. So just in case we do, I mean, God forbid, war broke out with China or something, we can warn Mauritius that we're going to attack in 12 hours. And then Mauritius can kindly warn China that we're going to do it as well. This is the lunacy and the stupidity of the people in charge of this country.
It is absolute lunacy. And the only explanation is that the British political class, so-called, have got no regard for British foreign policy whatsoever, because if you did, you would recognize that those islands are absolute gold dust for anybody that has control over them, situated where they are, perfect landing zone, perfectly situated in those waters, and hugely necessary for the defense against, for example, China or helping anybody in the Indian subcontinent, even ferrying materials and so on. So it's an absolutely huge thing that they're just ignoring. Just want to give a shout out to Patriot Dan 1979 there for the £2 super chat, folks. If you want to add a little donation here, please just go to the pound, the $. But I was thinking about this earlier as well today, as regards like the British overseas territories and the Commonwealth realms and so on, especially in the Caribbean and places like that. Britain does nothing for them, doesn't help them in any way, when what we should be doing is going in and trying to invest in these countries and saying, can we build your schools? Can we build your roads? Can we help you build factories? We'll get a cut of whatever and so on. Because that's what the Chinese do. The Chinese are moving into all these Caribbean countries and basically kind of buying them over. I'm not saying we should buy them over, but we should be at least seeing their value and helping them where we can for mutual benefit. And so that they see the point of having the king as the head of state, so that they see the point of their close relationship with Britain. But we have none of that imagination anymore to say, yeah, let's use these precious overseas territories and Commonwealth realms, which are the places that have still got the king as head of state. Let's use them for mutual benefit. But it doesn't seem that we've got any kind of thinking around those lines at all.
No, and you know why? Because these people are, well, globalists. They're internationalists, aren't they? They're not interested in Britain. They're interested in what they look like on the world stage. What they're really bothered about is getting rid of any form of colonialism. You know, Britain is bad. The empire was bad. Everything we ever did was bad. And that's what it's all about. Gibraltar will be next. The Falklands will come afterwards. You know, they've already given Spanish, is it police, something like control over Gibraltar anyway. So something to do with Gibraltar was given away. These people are nuts, but they hate our country. That's the point here. And just to Brandy199 is absolutely correct. Made the comment there, by the way. I was wrong. It's not in the Pacific Ocean. It's in the Indian Ocean. But it's a nice bridge over to the Pacific, the Chagos Islands. But these people absolutely hate our country, whether it's Starmer, Lamy, you name it. And the Chinese, you're right, are clever. They call it the Belt and Road, don't they, initiative. And what they do is they go in there for countries that have nothing or very little infrastructure, and the Chinese will build them railways or bridges or, you name it, that kind of thing. And then these people end up in so much debt to China, it's like owing the mafia money in a way. So what you end up doing is giving away things in your country to the Chinese. So you're right, they're absolutely bent over, aren't they? They end up being owned by China, or China ends up taking their mineral rights, or different, like how they build electric cars now. They own lithium mines in different countries, so they end up taking all these materials and then using them for their own benefit, selling us rubbish for net zero that they've never used themselves, but they're happy to sell it to the West. It's a clever model, don't get me wrong, but why people can't see it's a bad model, and the Chinese are no friends of Britain, I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, you answered your own question. It's because they're globalists, and many of them would be quite happy probably if China basically just took over things. So it seems. But no, and we wouldn't want to do that necessarily, because that's a kind of new form of like imperialism, isn't it? It's like without the soldiers with the khaki helmets and the bayonets. It's more of it's like economic imperialism, which there's always been a sort of, always been versions of, and this is just like the modern incarnation. But we could find ways of investing in things, factories and products and so on in these Caribbean countries and elsewhere without being accused of exploiting them in the way that the Chinese do. And it just pains me to see that we've got such a lack of imagination on that. But talking about people with lack of imagination, Keir Starmer, well, you told me, you told me he was up in Scotland. I mean, that came and went, and I tried to keep my ear close to the ground, and I didn't even know that. I mean, what was he doing, and when was that?
The actual day, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday. He was there. I don't even know what city he was in. I can only assume it was Edinburgh, Glasgow. It's got to be one of the two, but I don't actually know where he was. And it was all kept very, very hush hush. The last time he came to Scotland, he got abuse on the train from people that didn't like him. He got abuse leaving, I think it was Glasgow Central railway station. And then he got, as he tried to walk into the building he was going in for this meeting or conference, whatever it was, he got abuse going in there as well by protesters. So they kept it very quiet this time, but protesters still managed to find him and confront him sort of until they were hurried away by bodyguards, etc.
Well, that strikes me as ridiculous, because if you're the prime minister of the country, I mean, you shouldn't actually be traveling by train. I mean, you should have your own vehicle. Like, you should have your own limousine or whatever you want to call it, but you should be in one of these, like how the Americans do, like when Donald Trump travels around. I'm not saying he should have like a 40 vehicle cavalcade, but like a couple of vehicles with, a backup first aid and so on in the second vehicle. I mean, that's how he should be getting around. That's the safest way for the prime minister. You don't stick him in second class or even in first class on some train that's probably going to break down. I mean, that speaks again to how rubbish Britain is, that you can't even ferry the prime minister around without sticking him in second class.
To be honest with you, that was the last time he came to Scotland. He was on the train. That's the video I saw. This time round, I don't know how he got there and how he got back. I honestly don't know. And they've kept it so quiet. It's probably a private jet. They just don't want to tell us. So that's what I assumed happened. But anyway, I don't actually know what the conference was about. I can only assume it was, because Anna Sarwar was there, obviously. So I can only assume it's something to do with the Holyrood elections. And one of the STV journalists, who I'm not a massive fan of, but he had Starmer on toast during this interview we had with him, where he actually said to Starmer, "Aren't you relying now on Anna Sarwar to save your job when it comes to the Holyrood elections? Because if you get slaughtered," he actually said to him, "if you get beat badly, you're out, aren't you?" And he kind of like dodged around the question. He wouldn't answer it, obviously. But it's sad but true. I mean, Sarwar's no good either. He's a carbon copy of Starmer. But Starmer is relying on Sarwar to get a result in those Holyrood elections to try and save his job. But going off the polling just after Starmer had been to Scotland, I think it's pretty unlikely that's going to make any difference at all, because Labour have dropped 5 points now, sitting in third place on just 17%. With Reform now overtaking them, going to 20%, and the SNP well out in front on 33%. So wherever Starmer goes, he's toxic. The man is toxic. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll give you a really good example. Digital ID. I mean, I'm completely against it. Should never come in. But there was broad support for it amongst the minority of the public. It was about 31% of the public said they'd be interested in a digital ID card. Since Starmer decided to introduce it, it dropped to -20. The man can't do anything right because he's so despised. He's hated. I've never known anger towards a government like this. The latest approval ratings are 11% of people saying they approve of this government.
Why do you think it is particularly bad for him?
Because he doesn't connect. He's not human. And everything that he believes in. Well, first of all, he lied to become Labour leader. He had 10 pledges to his own membership and his own MPs, and he backtracked on all 10. Things like nationalising railways and energy and all that stuff. He backtracked on all 10 of those. The Labour manifesto from the last general election, you can tear that up and put it in the bin, because that was all lies as well. They didn't talk about digital IDs. They didn't talk about £70 billion worth of tax rises on people, and then trying to tell us it's not working people that are having to pay more tax now, when it absolutely is, of course. The man, imagine being stuck in a lift with him. That he has no personality, no charisma, no beliefs. His own MPs are sick of him, and they're trying to get rid of him now, but it's notoriously difficult to get rid of a Labour leader. But he just doesn't come across as human. And I speak to quite a few Labour MPs. They don't necessarily like me, but they like feeding me stuff. The majority of those 400 that are sitting in Parliament now have never met him. They don't know him. They've never spoken a single syllable to him. I accept it's difficult to get around 400 people and get to know them all and speak to them. I get that. But make the effort. At least try. And then he's marching them up the hill on different policies, such as keeping the two-child benefit cap. And then he suspended 7 of his own MPs for voting against him on that. And then 12 months later, less than 12 months later, he's rowing back on it, and he's lifted the two-child benefit cap. Of course, people are going to lose faith in him. How can you vote for someone like that? I'd lose the whip willingly. I'd be a terrible MP, me. I'd be booted out in seconds.
That's amazing what you just said. That according to your sources, the majority of Labour MPs have never actually met Keir Starmer. I mean, that speaks to Keir Starmer's failure, really, because it's for him to knock on the door, maybe pick a couple a day or something for a year, and get around them all in alphabetical order or whatever. But you want to be able to just connect in some way with them.
Just do 2 a week or something. It's not difficult, is it? Yeah, even if you're making the effort. I can tell you something really interesting. In Parliament, not last week before, Starmer tried to walk around the bars and restaurants in Parliament. For one of the first, people said they'd never seen him there before. And all of a sudden, he's trying to cozy up to all these Labour MPs that he's never met in his life. He's trying to have conversations with them, sit down to dinner with them in the parliamentary restaurants. And people were shocked. They were saying, well, we've never seen this guy in here before. And all of a sudden, he's trying to kiss their backsides. And it didn't go down well, by the way. And literally, in one of the private dining rooms that's reserved for just MPs, Starmer was dining with a few of his own MPs. And literally, I can tell you this for a fact now, in the next room down from them, in a private room, a bunch of his own MPs were sat there plotting on how to get rid of him. Right. that's how bad. It's literally feet away from him. They're plotting to get rid of him while he's trying to schmooze you up to a few of them at a dinner table.
Supermorto here has done the calculations, says that there's 72 10-minute intervals in 12 hours. It would take a week to meet with everybody. I'll trust that's accurate. But yeah, I mean, in that case, if you wanted to spread it out a bit, it could take 2 or 3 weeks, but certainly you could get around them.
But make the effort. That's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You know yourself, if you go to a shop somewhere or a restaurant or a pub or something, if someone uses your name like they know you, you feel like you're getting better service. Like, they know you. That's all Starmer has to do. Learn any random MP's name. Maybe one thing about them. They've got a wife and 2 kids. That's it. You meet them, you go, hello, such a person. How's the wife and children?
That's
this guy
right.
knows me. He actually knows who I am. That's good. I feel like I've got something in common with this guy. I've got some sort of loyalty or affiliation to him. He won't have done any of that. I guarantee you now, he won't have done any of that.
And modern technology makes that so easy as well, because
Yeah.
you just need to have a list of the names, and even on your mobile phone, you just put in like John, 2 kids, wife's called Jane, whatever.
Exactly.
And,
How easy is that?
It's very easy, very easy. So I'm talking about people who have got maybe a little bit more charisma. Nigel Farage was up in Falkirk on Saturday, addressing a very large number of people in Shira Hotel. 750 were told. I was skeptical of that, so I googled it, and in fact, yes, they do have a ballroom that can take 750 people sitting down, and they make a big thing of that. So whether every seat was taken or whether the ballroom just looked quite packed, so they said 750, then I don't know, but it was certainly a substantial number, into the hundreds. And that's very unusual for any kind of political event in Scotland whatsoever. And what I find interesting is we're regularly on TikTok, and we'll come across a video of like maybe a Labour SP or SNP MSP or Lib Dem SNP, and they're slagging Nigel Farage, and you're looking, there's like 500 comments. So you go onto the comments, and they're all don't care, voting Nigel all the way. I'm reform, and these are just like, you can look at it's just like normal people, and so he's got huge support here, and the Labour and Tories and Lib Dems don't really know what to do. The SNP, though, is lucky because it's an unusual political party. It just talks about separation for Scotland, and there's always a percentage, at least 25% of people who vote for them on that alone, even if you put up a proverbial unicorn or whatever, they'd still vote for that thing. And if they can get 30% of the people voting for them on the day, then they're going to get like a majority in Holyrood. And so they're always sitting quite pretty, but it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder for them in 2026, no question about it. I don't know if you followed any of Farage in Scotland at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually quite surprised myself. I didn't think Farage would do very well in Scotland, but it seems that people are willing to listen to an alternative. The problem for Farage is that people were willing to vote Labour last time because they were sick of the SNP who'd done nothing. So the SNP got obliterated. Now they're more willing, it seems to me, or certainly looking at the polls, to go back to the SNP because they just want to give Westminster a bloody nose in any way possible. So like you just said, they're always going to have, say, a 20, 25% share of the vote just by saying, I want to leave the UK. It's never going to happen, of course, but that they'll always get a certain share. Then all they've got to do is get another 5%, and they've already got a substantial amount of MSPs inside Holyrood. You know, they're polling at 33 now, and that is partly down to Westminster. Farage is probably the only person with the charisma and the what's the word there? The presence, the notoriety. That's what I'm looking for. The notoriety to take on the SNP really inside Scotland. But then again, he wouldn't be. Let's just say, I don't think it's going to happen. But if Reform got a majority in, or with the biggest party in Holyrood, who would be the first minister? It wouldn't be Farage, would it? Because he's trying to be prime minister. You can't be both. So it's a bit of a difficult thing, really. I want to see Reform get a good number of MSPs, and I think there's a chance at that. Farage is certainly, if he can't do it with his draw, then I don't think anybody can. And I hate to say this for the people of Scotland, you know, obviously I'm pro-unionist just like yourselves, but the SNP are going to be the biggest party in Holyrood. There's no stopping it because Westminster have been so bad. I think you could see a bit of shifting around as well. I noticed the Lib Dems are dropping quite substantially inside Scotland. You might see Alex Cole-Hamilton get booted out. You'll probably see Sawar get booted out. There'll be a big change, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Scottish Tory leader, what's his name? I'm not a big fan.
Findlay. Russell Findlay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he got booted out as well. I was never a big fan of Russell Findlay, and I think he'll get booted out. None of them is powerful, strong enough, big enough voices to take on the SNP, I don't think.
No, there's not. That's what reforms. I mean, reforms going into the last 5 months now, before the 7th of May, and basically they don't have a national figure in Scotland. Now, that's recognisable at all. They don't have, actually. They don't. I don't believe they have a Scottish leader at all. So they have to get that sorted, and it has to be somebody that connects in a Scottish way. And they've got one. I can think of maybe one person that they've got that does that. That's already got media attention, but they're going to need that. And the idea of them having the deputy prime minister the deputy first minister isn't entirely crazy. I mean, unless no, it probably is crazy, because the SNP would need to do a coalition with Reform, which that would be good. That would be good. That would keep the SNP on its toes, and that would probably protect the union. I'd much rather have them doing that than a coalition with the Greens, because all that's going to do is destroy the union. So yeah, an SNP Reform coalition, maybe that's what's going to have to happen. And
you get large odds at the bookies for that.
Yeah, that might be the way that the numbers will fall. I mean, that's almost certainly going to be the way that the numbers will fall. I mean, if you just said there that Reform are now billing in second place at 20%, with the Labour at 17%, and the Tories and Lib Dems and Greens below that, then the top two parties could be SNP and Reform. So it's going to be very interesting. But from our point of view, what we would like to see is the SNP lose seats and lose votes. I mean, if they got fewer votes this time round than they got in 2021, that would be a bit of a victory for unionism. And that's not improbable. They could still win. They could still win Holyrood, but with fewer votes than they got in 2021. Which would be maybe one of the better outcomes that we can imagine. And that's entirely feasible. And the way that it's looking, it could be that, especially if it loses Scottish nationalists to Reform, because there are a proportion, albeit a small proportion, of Scottish nationalists who are aware of what's happening in the wider country and can see that in the 2022-2023 year, 90,000 people long term came to live in Scotland. That's a population bigger than Paisley. Last year, in the 23-24, or was it the 24-25? I can't recall, but a population the size of East Kilbride, 76,000 people came in. I mean, these are crazy numbers.
Yeah.
And you can't, and John Swinney, and we tried to get to this in we did when we spoke in Falkirk, and John Swinney has nothing to say to this. And other than it's welcome because it's diverse, and Scotland has always been welcoming, and Scotland welcomes diversity. And that's really all that he can say. And because he's never been properly challenged by anybody to explain why he wants all of this going on. But that's changing now. And by May next year, if we, a Force for Good, can do what we can to influence the debate as well, we're going to be trying to influence Scottish nationalists to realise, look, if you love Scotland, like we all do, then you can't vote for it to be turned into what will essentially become a foreign country within 10, 15 years at these rates of people coming in. And it's kind of almost like a last chance saloon, because 5 years ahead of us now, Scotland could be a completely different place at those kind of numbers, like 70 to 100,000 long-term people coming in every year, mainly younger people as well. Then that's, and Scotland's only got a population of 5.5 million. And of that 5.5 million, 500,000 of them are already born outside of the United Kingdom.
And if they have children, then they become more and they become more. And this is what happens, isn't it? As you see the recent story recently about Glasgow, another one, Aitken in Glasgow, welcomes as many refugees as she can get her hands on, yet claims that, claims there's no money in the council. Surprise, surprise. Yet it turns out nearly 30% of children in Glasgow schools don't speak English as a first language. So how's anybody supposed to get educated? How many different languages are in those classrooms? How many times is a teacher having to repeat his or herself to try and get a point across? God help you if you're getting educated in Glasgow now. You've got no chance. Glasgow now has more immigrants than London. Then that's saying something. That is incredible. And London has become a hellhole, not entirely down to immigration, but it's certainly played a big part in it.
Yeah, that must be per capita.
Yeah, per capita. Yeah, of course,
yeah. Well, it's diverse, Ash, so it must be okay. That's what we're assured by John.
Diversity is our strength, isn't it? That's it.
Yes, and we must have hope. We must have hope for the future. Hope for more diversity. Apparently, in my speech, I said, when he talks about hope, is he talking about those of us who hope that our politicians will get a grip and stop mass immigration? Is he talking about those of us who hope that fraudulent asylum seeking will end? Is that the kind of hope that he cares about, or is it a different kind of hope altogether?
Yeah, it's their worldview, isn't it? That's what they care about. It's not what you think or I think. We don't matter. We're just the plebs. Pay your taxes and shut up. That's what we get.
Yes.
They've got their own worldview, and that's what matters to them. And I can tell you now, it's quite an interesting story. I was speaking to some Scottish MPs, right? And they are the ones leading the charge against Starmer at the moment. They're the ones who are going to topple him. There's already something like, I think it's 20 odd of them. I think Labour they've got something like 35, is it now, or something they managed to get? Anyway, about 20 odd of these MPs have got together. They're the ones leading the charge, because they're the ones who are telling me they're out on the doorsteps trying to campaign for these elections coming up, and they can't even get someone to keep the door open to them. It's that bad. So just wait. Just wait and see how bad it is for them when it comes to the Hollywood. I mean, they've got 21 MSPs. Don't be surprised if they lose 11, 12, 13 of them. There won't be many left afterwards.
It's very possible. It's very possible. It's very possible from what I can see as well. Ash, it's the top of the hour, actually. That's half an hour. That went very, very quick. Now, folks, if you don't already, please do subscribe to Ash at youtube.com/@ Preston Journalist. Great YouTube page. Gets several videos, long form and short form, every day. Very much worth your time and energy to listen to Ash. So thanks very much, Ash, for coming on. Thanks also for live streaming to your viewers as well. A big welcome to the Preston Journalist people who came in today to watch their man. We'll get you back in 2026, and it's going to be a great year because there's going to be an awful lot that we'll be able to talk about. So we might have to have you on on a regular basis, certainly in the run up to the big day on the 7th of May.
It's always a pleasure coming on, Alistair. Yeah, anytime, just drop me a message as usual, and I'll always come on the channel and I enjoy it.
Absolutely will. Until next year.
Have a nice Christmas, everyone, and I'll see you on the other side.
See ya. Fantastic. Ash, the Preston Journalist. Now, folks, we have our annual Yule Britannia Christmas crowdfunder. It is running right now. It started at 7:30 on the 10th of December. It's running until the 7th. We've got a lot of rewards for you if you want to chip in. And we've also got an explanation at that site, crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2026, about the sort of things that we need the money for and that we plan on doing in the very exciting Holyrood election year of 2026. And you can simply donate by clicking on the top button, or if you want to donate and claim a reward, then there's plenty of rewards that you can claim, and we're going to be adding more in the next few days as well. And you don't need to claim a reward, but if you do, then please go ahead. And if you want a reward in time for Christmas, then please simply just click for a reward as soon as possible I'll pick it up tonight or tomorrow or the next day, and we'll get that out in the post to you in time for Christmas. We've also got some flags, some wooden flags that have been that we're also using for rewards. Check them out. We've got more flags, wooden flags, that we're going to be adding in the next few days as well. So folks, do take a look at that. Crowdfunder.co.uk, AFFG 2026. There's the banner there. Good stuff. Now, screenshot. We're going to be back next week. We'll have a guest next week as well. And what we'll do next week is we'll kind of wrap up the year, including our achievements and all the sort of stuff that we've done this year. So that'll be a good show next year, next week as well. But until then, folks, I think that's everything. Let me see. Lots of comments coming in tonight. Derek says, great show. Oksana says, thanks, Ash. As does Catherine. Christopher says, great comments as always. Super Mortar says, don't let them get you down. Oh, crikey. Private Jose, we've got one or two, we've got some super chats we need to go through. Private Jose says, get Preston journalist, love your channel. I can't wait for the day Labour gets kicked out, but how long can this country last? £10 super chat. Thank you very much, Private Jose. Really, really good stuff. Thank you. And let's just check that we've got all the super chats. There was one earlier, wasn't there? There we go. We'll bring him up again. Where is he? Patriot Dan with his £2 super chat. Thank you very much. That's much appreciated. Good stuff. Okay, folks, just remains for me to say we'll be back next week. In the interim, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next week.